the CNN headline actually gets at some truth here, some underlying reality. Oh, my gosh. About politics? I don't even know.
Is it really?
Maybe they're turning the corner after the CNN Plus debacle to let's just actually live in reality here. Maybe that's been a bit of a gut check for CNN in their political reporting. It's been a very bad few days for Joe Biden, is the CNN headline from earlier today, which I got to say is true. It has not been a good few days for the Biden administration, and you can tell that the people who wake up every day and their job is to try to find some explanation for the people out there to understand why things maybe feel like they're not going so well. There's problems out there. Things are expensive, the gas price, but it's actually not bad. It's actually good. You just don't realize how it's so good. That's getting to be a challenge, a particularly challenging thing for the Democrat-aligned legacy and corporate media. And I can tell, Clay, to the point that you made earlier in the week about maybe Biden doesn't want to challenge the mask mandate ruling from that wonderful federal judge down in
God bless that
Judge
judge.
Mizell.
Yes.
I might have to name my firstborn Mizell. The judge did a great job. The ruling was correct. It is arbitrary and capricious. It's stupid beyond words. And people are, in a lot of cases, it's tough to define whether they're rejecting the end of the mask mandate because of irrational fear or just because of that part of their brain that has to be, we're right, we're the good people, and if this is what my side says, it must be the correct thing. Biden hasn't yet challenged it. They say they may challenge the masking rule in court if the CDC tells them, which is fascinating because this is the game they always play. The CDC is in the executive branch. This
Correct.
is not a thing, and I want everyone to understand this. I worked in the CIA for a while. CIA doesn't have a CIA director who makes decisions about what the agency is going to do that overrules the president. No, the CIA director does what the president tells him or he gets fired. So, Clay, this is how they are. This is how they're splitting it. This is how they're going down the middle. Maybe they'll challenge it by pretending that the CDC has the authority and not the White House to bring the challenge in the first place.
2 points to what you just said, which is exactly right. One, the reason we have elections is so we know who to hold accountable for the choices that they make. This defeats the entire purpose of elections themselves when you say we're going to allow unelected bureaucrats to make choices. That's the first part. It is a fundamental usurpation of the entire democratic process. Second part here, Buck. This has got really interesting ramifications because what they said was we may challenge it if the CDC decides, I believe on May the 3rd, when the 15 days was scheduled to end, that they need to extend beyond May 3rd. I think that's the way that they have phrased this. So you could end up in a situation, Buck, where for 2 weeks, basically, nobody is wearing masks on airplanes. The TSA is not enforcing the mask protocol in any way. And then, according to Joe Biden's own logic, if on May the 3rd, the CDC says, hey, the mask mandate still needs to be in effect, after a 2-week pause, when everybody basically can do whatever they want without having to wear masks, suddenly Joe Biden would say, TSA agents, you have to check masks again. And by the way, everybody has to put masks to get back on airplanes. To me, that is an epic bungling of the utmost sincerity, right? Which makes it perfect for the Biden administration because they would have managed to make everyone angry. And by the way, Buck, what is more arbitrary and capricious than deciding for 15 days you don't need masks, and then suddenly you have to bring the masks back because of the CDC guideline? I think what they're going to do, they're trying to give a fig leaf here to make it look like this judge didn't make the decision, and then the CDC is going to say, okay, we don't need the mask mandate anymore, but they can still blame the Trump judge.
Remember, you have kids, but I remember when I was a little kid, the game, you'd play at summer camp, Simon Says, right? And it was, touch your nose, touch your feet, jump in the air, touch your nose. And It's kind of like that with mask policies. It's N95, it's double mask, it's no mask, it's yes mask. They keep changing it. It's absurd. It's idiotic. I'm sorry there are so many adults who got caught up in this. And I do think at some level are trying to suppress the embarrassment of knowing that they've been played for so long. And here is Scott Gottlieb, who is an establishment COVIDian, if you will. He is one of the, he was a pro-mask guy, he was a pro-lockdown guy, but he does tend to be a little bit ahead of where the rest of the Democrat herd was willing to go on this stuff. He's like Dr. Lena Wen, for example, is willing to be...
She flip-flopped unbelievably.
Right. But
yes.
She was very much the consensus, and then she got about, 4 to 6 weeks ahead of the Democrat herd. Here is Scott Gottlieb saying... Yeah, what would be helpful if the CDC was a competent agency?
The broader implications here aren't the immediate impact on public health. It was clearly time to lift the mask mandate, and they should have done it when it expired April 18th. I think the risk is to the future and what this could mean to CDC authority, although that can be solved for, not by appealing it, but by CDC taking action. They should go through a careful rulemaking process. It could be solved for by CDC being a more competent agency. This outcome was, at least in part, and maybe in large part, a failure of CDC's ability to make policy through rigorous, transparent, science-driven rulemaking. They didn't have a good administrative record in place, and that was at least a part of the judge's ruling in this case. She cited the fact that they didn't have a good administrative record.
They had a terrible administrative record. The CDC will never be thought of the same way by anybody who's honest and paying attention. But also notice that he's like, yeah, the mask mandate should be gone. This is idiotic. But meanwhile, you go on social media, Clay, and all the blue checks are some judge who's not even qualified. The White House press secretary, judges shouldn't be making laws. Do they know how the government works, actually? Do they understand the checks and balances and functions? No, they don't.
Yeah, and this is, I want to play a couple of these cuts because I do think, Buck, it's so emblematic over a fundamental lack of understanding of the entire way that our government is set up. But first, I loved this one. A former Obama official, Dr. Kavita Patel, she wanted you to know that you should carry extra, did you see this, Buck? Carry extra masks to give to people near you. Just listen to this, and then I want you to think, what would your reaction be if somebody walked up and said, oh, here's a mask. I saw you didn't have one. I got to be honest with you. I tend to be pretty easygoing. I wouldn't respond well to that happening. Here's what she's suggesting.
If people want to stay safe, the best thing they can do, high-quality masks, and that when possible, carry some extra masks. I know this sounds crazy, but if you tell someone next to you on a plane, KN95 or surgical mask, and just say, I've got an elderly mother at home, I've got a child with cancer at home, will you please do me a favor? Having the people at least closest to you in that row, protecting yourself and them, can be the best safety. So carry some extra masks with you. Carry some rapid tests with you if you're traveling.
It's the mental
Carry
illness.
rapid test with you? First of all, Buck, look, I have empathy for anyone who is dealing with kids or parents or whatever else who are sick. If someone sitting next to me on an airplane said, my mom has cancer, can you wear this mask? I would say no. And I would immediately say, because it has zero safety to bring to bear for your mom. I hope your mom's well. I hope she beats cancer. This is magical thinking. It's nonsense. It's the equivalent of just saying, hey, could you sit upside down like stand on your head for this flight because I think it might help my mom who has cancer? It's basically the equivalent.
Yeah, why not just ask somebody, can you just hold your breath as much as possible for the next 3 hours of this flight? Can you just try to hold your breath and try to breathe the bare minimum amount? The masks, this is why the fundamental issue here, and we haven't really, this is where the removal of the mandate and our joy at this, because of the end of at least the stupidity of this authoritarian boot on our necks, or in this case, masks on our faces, the removal of the mandate crowds out that we're not done here because the masks don't work, folks. The masks do not do anything. Every chart, all the data, all the numbers you can look at for mask mandate and non-mask mandate. Think of all the people you've seen. I did everything right. I wore a mask all the time for a year, and I still got COVID.
I got 8 shots, and I got COVID.
And they're actually surprised by this because they haven't thought through the basics of what's happening in someone's day-to-day life. You're only going to get a strain of COVID, probably, one strain, one time. So that one day when you're not masked up for your 8 hours or whatever, you get it. All the masking that came before and all the masking that comes after doesn't matter. And so unless you're going to live life in a hermetically sealed bubble where no germs and no aerosolized virus can get near you, this is crazy. There is a reason why we never did this before. There have been colds and flus and other things, and there has been no mass masking in the history of America since people were all completely terrified during the Spanish influenza pandemic of 1918. And you'll notice that we stopped the masking, Clay, as that pandemic ended because everyone was like, that didn't do a damn thing. So this is the fundamental problem still.
We've got people telling others to travel with rapid tests. So what? You're going to find out if you have a light cold or flu, and what? You're not going to go anywhere else? Like when you're traveling, you're already one place. The other thing on this, Buck, is, and I think this is important, note how quickly the conversation has shifted. Here's the reality of what's going on. If you want to wear a mask, you can wear a mask for the rest of your life. The judge in Florida didn't say no one can wear masks anywhere anymore when it comes to airplane travel or train travel or anything else. That isn't part of a ruling. It's just you can't be forced to wear one. There's a big difference between people who make an individual choice for themselves and people who are saying, and oh, by the way, you have to wear a mask too. I think you're a loser, personally, if you are still wearing masks because they don't work. And all you're doing when you have the big mask on is sending me a sign that you have somehow managed to avoid the truth of the data relating to masks for 2 years, which makes me think you are a loser and also an imbecile. But I'm not going to walk up to you and grab your mask and rip it off your face and say, you can't wear this anymore. You just can't force me to wear one.
I do think it's worth pointing out that the pro-masking crowd were okay with the monstrous scenes of people being pulled out of their church, being laid out on the aisle of an airplane. They were fine with the force of the state. I mean, the literal physical force of the state being used to make people do something that was utterly worthless and moronic. And so I do not forgive and forget this.
Yep.
To your point, we have to live in society with each other, and we should try to be polite and understanding of those around you to the degree that you can. But it is their side, in fact, that was ruthless and willing to brutalize people with their stupidity. It is the unmasked people, the unmaskers, if you will, who are saying, okay, fine, if you want to do this, you do this. We're not the ones running around that need to force everybody else to do stuff. That's just not in our nature. And even Joe Biden, for example, is out there now saying, Joe Biden's telling everybody, yeah, it's up to you. It's your choice.
Mr. President, should people continue to wear masks on planes?
That's up to them.
Would you like to appeal the ruling that the judge made striking down the mandate?
I haven't spoken to the CDC yet.
That's up to them, he says. So I don't want any of these blue check whiners and crybabies saying, it's making everyone die. Your president, blue checks and libs, is saying it's a choice matter now. There you go.
I'm sure he'll walk that back because he spoke outside. I probably said what he actually believes, but he spoke outside of what his handlers will allow him. They needed to have the Easter Bunny. By the way, that is an unbelievable story. I don't even know that we spend very much time on it, Buck, but a White House official dressed up as an Easter Bunny coming by to grab the president at the Easter celebration to keep him from talking to people on a rope line because she was afraid of what he might say. I mean, that is truly, you can't even write something that insane.
If I asked you, Clay, right now, you could either have Joe Biden as the president or a random mall Easter Bunny, just picked at random. I mean,
the random mall Easter Bunny is probably a lot younger and a lot healthier and maybe more sane.
Yes.
I mean, I never would have believed this, but if you told me right now, you can have any Major League Baseball manager, any NFL head coach, any NBA head coach, president of the United States, or Joe Biden, I would take all the coaches. I mean, it's crazy to even suggest that because there are some idiot coaches out there, trust me. But there are like 100 guys in those professions that I just named. I would take all 100 of them, I think, over Joe Biden right now. That's how bad things are. And those guys don't know anything about politics, but at least they theoretically don't have dementia. I wanted to continue this ridiculousness. Jen Psaki was asked about videos of people pulling off their masks on planes and all of the celebratory behavior. She said anecdotes aren't data. Here's Jen Psaki.
You saw a lot of Americans, immediately pulling off their masks on airplanes, very happy about the change. Is the administration concerned that the public is moving on, without the CDC, and that the country's in a different place where the administration is?
Well, I've seen those videos. Anecdotes are not data, right? And certainly that does tell a part of the story. But we don't make these decisions based on politics or based on the political whims on a plane or even in a poll. But I would note in polls, in data, lengthier data, there are still a lot of people in this country who still want to have masks in place. Either they have immunocompromised relatives, they have kids under 5, whatever it may be.
Can I just, the kids under 5 thing, this drives me insane. Kids under 5 can't get the vaccine because they've been able to prove zero benefit
and
to
also
children
zero
under
danger
5 in getting the vaccine.
Yes, and zero danger. They neither need the vaccine because there is no danger. So this obsession, and I get it, it's probably effective for lots of people who are busy and don't actually look into the data themselves. This is why I found it so infuriating the way that the Biden White House has used kids as props during this entire COVID shenanigan. And by the way, Dr. Fauci as well. The number one fear of every parent, something happened to your kids, they've convinced people that is a reality, even though it's a lie. And it is absolutely infuriating that we have allowed it to continue.